28th, 2020 meeting of the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy, and the meeting, including the date, time, and location, has been properly noticed, and copies of the agenda were posted to the Board of Accountancy website on July 21, 2020. This meeting is being conducted by WebEx, and a little bit later, Maria Bush, legal counsel, will read the statement of necessity with respect to that meeting. But we'll begin with the roll call. So Karen, if you'll please call the roll.
Andy Connor.
Here.
Janet Booker Davis.
Here.
Pam Church.
Here.
Stephen Eldridge.
Here.
Larry Elmore.
Here.
Greg Gilbert.
Here.
Kevin Monroe.
Here.
Amy Moon.
Here.
Todd Skelton. Trey Watkins.
Here.
Judy Weatherby. Here.
Okay, thank you, Karen. And I believe Todd Skelton mentioned he will be joining us a little bit later in the morning due to work that he's doing with the Governor's Unified Command Task Force. So we've had the public disclaimer and roll call. Maria, will you now read the statement of necessity with respect to the WebEx teleconference nature of this meeting?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy, which is taking place via teleconference. Notice that this meeting was posted to the board's website on July 23rd, 2020. As there is not a physical quorum present, a statement of necessity is read into the record and filed with the Tennessee Secretary of State as required by statute. Pursuant to Cpa 844-108b2, if a physical quorum is not present at the location of a meeting of a governing body, then in order for a quorum of members to participate by electronic or other means of communication, the governing body must make a determination that necessity exists. That determination must include a recitation of the facts and circumstances on which it was based. TCA annotated 844-108A3 defines necessity as matters to be considered by the governing body at that meeting require timely action by the body. That physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and that participation by a quorum of members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary. As stated, this is a regularly scheduled meeting for the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy. The purpose of this meeting with members attending by teleconference is to conduct the quarterly scheduled meeting of the board due to the COVID-19 virus. All voting today will be conducted by roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate that. And what we'll do, similar to what we did in the prior meeting, is just ask everyone to mute their mics when they are not speaking. And if they would like to speak, just so we don't speak over one another and have some background information, just use the chat function to indicate that you want to speak, whenever you would like to do so. And then I'll try to recognize folks in the order in which they said that they wanted to speak if we have more than one in a particular item. And that seemed to work pretty well at the last meeting, and we'll try that again here at this meeting. With respect to announcements, one announcement that I'd like to make is to Trey. And Trey, we're glad we have you for yet another meeting. Trey is approaching the end of his third consecutive term and is serving pending announcement of a successor board member from the governor's office. And just Trey, again, we appreciate the wise counsel and the many years of that wise counsel and service to the profession on the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy.
Well, thank y'all for having me.
You bet. The next item we have is to review and adopt the posted agenda. The agenda has been posted and distributed to the board members. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Andy.
So we have a motion by Andy. Is there a second?
This is Larry. I'll second that.
Larry, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the agenda? If not, because we are meeting by teleconference, all votes will be via roll call. So I'll ask Karen to call the roll.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Kay Moon,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby. Aye.
Okay, thank you, Karen. The motion to adopt the agenda is approved unanimously. And the next item on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from our regular quarterly meeting of May 5th, 2020. Those have also been provided in the read-ahead packet. Is there a motion to adopt or approve, rather, the meeting minutes from the May 5th meeting?
I move we adopt the May 5th meeting minutes.
Okay, Larry, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that. This is Andy.
Andy, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or question on any items in the minutes? If not, we'll go ahead and call the roll, Karen, on the approval of the minutes from the May 5th, 2020 meeting.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Kay Moon,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby. Aye.
Okay, thank you, Karen. The minutes are approved unanimously. The next item is the Executive Director's Report, and for that, I'll turn things over to Wendy Garvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me? Yes, I think. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see everyone's faces this morning. The Executive Director's Report you were provided in advance, and I have the wrong document in front of me. Okay. The first item is typical on the Executive Director's Report is our future meeting dates. The first 4 that are listed there have already been approved and are highlighted on the website. The last one of Tuesday, October 19th, 2021 is a proposed date, so we'll want to vote on that at the end of my report. I did kind of bump that up a little bit earlier, not knowing when NASBA may have their annual meeting. If I push it to the final week of the month, it could overlap just depending on what dates they select. Speaking of NASBA meetings, their annual meeting is scheduled for November 1st through the 4th, and it is now been determined that that will be a virtual meeting. So everyone would be invited to join. There will be no cost for that, is my understanding, and you will simply attend the sessions that you wish to attend and provide commentary if you'd like. NASBA's nominating committee, a big congratulations to Janet Booker Davis, who has been elected to serve on NASBA's nominating committee. Yay, go Tennessee. So the charge of this group is to nominate officers and directors for the NASBA board. So congratulations, Janet. Happy to see someone from Tennessee representing Tennessee on that group. The CPA exam. So things have quieted down just a bit based on COVID. During the shutdown, Prometric had waived their rescheduling fees, making it easier for candidates to reschedule during the downtime. Things have evened out. Of course, testing ramped back up May 1st, and we are now at I think that they said 70 to 80% capacity currently. We've also implemented continuous testing as of July 1st, and they've also expanded testing times. And so the ability to find a testing time seems to have gotten a lot easier. And as a result, they are waiving or they are re-implementing their rescheduling fees starting August 1st. Now, there are still opportunities for candidates to request a refund if their testing date was canceled on them or something related to COVID prevented them from being able to sit. They'll just have to go through a process to request that refund. It won't be automatic. And of course, I just mentioned continuous testing began July 1st, so I think everyone is excited about that. State-specific ethics. So what we've noticed in the current Cpe audit, and we've known this before, but there have been other violations as well, but one of the more common violations related to the Cpe audit is the state-specific ethics course. For some reason, there are a number of folks who don't realize that that is one of the requirements, or they get a general regulatory ethics course and believe that that should count for the requirement. And so we've talked as staff about how we can get the word out a little bit better. So we have changed up the website a little bit and provided some more information on where to obtain that course with links and all sorts of things to make it easier for them to find out where they can get an acceptable course. As well, I'm planning to do a standalone email communication just on state ethics, a reminder that that is a requirement on and where they can obtain that course, that approved course, to help facilitate that. Maybe we can work with the society as well about putting something in their communication pieces to help get that information out there a little bit better. That's definitely our highest rate of non-compliance currently. Newsletter on May 21st, we did our spring summer newsletter that was emailed out to all licensees and was also posted to our website. So if you missed that, you can certainly visit the website and find that. Okay, the Accountancy Licensing Database, the ALD. This has been around for a good while, and this is a database that is managed by NASBA. It's a national database where licensing information goes so that the public and regulatory boards can obtain licensing information on individuals throughout the whole country. So Cpa Verify is the public side of that platform, and the public employers, anyone who wants to, can log in and look someone up and see where they're licensed. Are they licensed in Tennessee? Are they licensed in Wisconsin? And that type of thing. And so we've been part of this for a long time. What we do is we automatically send individual licensing information over on a daily basis. That's kind of a behind the scenes thing that happens. And then we send disciplinary information over on a quarterly basis, and that's a manual process. We've been not able to electronically submit that information in the past. But what we are currently doing is I've finally been able to get that IT ticket moving, and so we are working to get that automated. So we are working with the IT team, and we're making some good progress there. And we will also be adding the firm information because we are lacking there as well. So the idea is that firm information would feed over on a daily basis, just like the individual information feeds over. So we're excited about that. Making some improvements there. The Contractors Board, as you all know, our legal report has deficiencies every month, violations every month from individuals who are performing a test work that either were not licensed or were not participating in peer review as required by the laws and the rules. And so Sherry and I have worked with, I talked to the executive director of the Contractors Board. We managed to get their application over for us to review. Sherry and I have reviewed it and made some suggestions on some improvements they could make to clarify what properly licensed means and what those people need to have in order to do that type of work. So we're hoping that that will clarify and have less violations in that area. So those suggestions have been submitted to the executive director of the Contractors Board. So I'll be touching base with her to see if they were able to implement any of those. TSCPA activities. Chairman Monroe and I attended TSCPA's council meeting on June 19th, and Kevin was able to give an update on board activities at that meeting. I know that several of you probably attended that meeting, but Kevin and I attended in our role with the board. So, and it was a great meeting. So kudos to TSCPA on that virtual meeting. I thought it went really well. Performance metrics, these numbers are taken from the April and May CFG reports and basically report on the number of days it takes us to license, as well as how efficient we are being with our case and complaints that come in, and our online adoption rate. So with online adoption rate, that is how are people applying for their license, and are they doing that online, or are they sending paper in? So we are consistently between 97 and 100% of folks applying online. The areas we have trouble a little bit is on the firm side. So a lot of people just want to send all that, the paperwork for the firms in. So that's where we could see some improvement if we need to see improvement anywhere. And then the last part is just licenses issued. You'll notice in the second quarter of this year, we were down compared to the prior year. We issued 163 licenses in the second quarter last year and only 103 this year. I did look specifically at June numbers, and we're only about 5 licenses behind last year. So these numbers are really reflective of, I think, April and May with the shutdown and NASBA offices being shut down as well, and some difficulty there getting files over to us. But June numbers actually looked pretty good, so I'm feeling good about going forward. And folks are getting testing dates and are being able to test, as far as I can tell. I had asked in an email last week for you all to reach out to candidates that you may work with, that you may have as students, that you may have as family, just to get the experience as to what's going on out there. And I did hear back some great news from Pam. Some of her graduate students said that it is much easier now to get a date at their preferred location versus earlier in the spring. So that was good news there. I think Andy gave me some feedback from some folks as well. And you know, while there were some bumps in the road, things seem to be going pretty well. So if anyone hears anything that they're struggling with, I really would like to know so that we can see if we need to address anything. But things appear to be looking up. And the last part of the report there is the overall licensing population. So we still stand at June of 2020. We stand at more active licenses than June of 2019, which is kind of always the thing I look at. We had 11,435 active licenses this June 30, where June of last year we had 11,207. So that's always good news. Firms are tracking just a little bit down, but that's to be expected given the fact that not all firms actually need to have a license unless they're doing a test work or using CPA in the name of their firm. And I believe that completes my report. If there are any questions, happy to take those.
Any questions for Wendy? Thank you for that report. And we will get to the action item on approving the proposed new meeting date. But before we do, any board member questions for Wendy? All right, we'll go ahead and proceed on the action item, which is to approve the proposed date for the October 2021 board meeting to be held on Tuesday, October 19th. And generally those would be preceded by committee meetings on the Monday afternoon beforehand. And so is there a motion to approve that proposed date?
I so move.
Okay, that sounded like Greg. Thank you, Greg.
Yes.
And is there a second?
Second, this is Janet.
Thank you, Janet. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Karen, will you please call the roll?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Brett Gilbert,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby,
Aye.
Thank you, Karen. And that proposed date is passed unanimously. So that will be the date that we'll set and publish. The next item on the agenda relates to a hearing resolution. And for that, we'll turn it over to Legal Counsel Maria Bush.
Thank you. So I know we had all discussed having a hearing at this meeting, and I just kind of wanted to give you all an update. Stuart and I worked together on the case that was set for hearing today, and we ended up having a mediation, and that settled the matter. So the hearing was canceled due to the settlement of the case. And Wendy had just kind of asked me to explain the mediation process to you all. So that happens after we file with the Administrative Procedures Division, and a judge from APD, as it's called for short, will then mediate the case, and that would be the judge that is not assigned to the matter. Mediation requires both parties to be on board and in agreement. Everything that happens at mediation is confidential, and it's usually a good resolution for the parties. Sometimes respondents in cases need more perspective, or it helps with another judge coming in, looking at the facts and the law, and just giving an unbiased opinion of how it will likely move forward at hearing. So in this case, that's what happened, and we had the respondent sign the consent order as proposed. So I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update on that. If you have any questions about the mediation process, I'm happy to answer that. There's one thing Wendy asked me to touch on about the cost, and so there is a filing fee associated with filing for hearing. I think it's around $200. However, the mediation doesn't have additional cost. That's something that APD provides. But the filing fee doesn't go away after mediation, so that is a cost that was absorbed by the board. If Stuart wants to add anything, I'm not sure, but that's pretty much the overview of mediation, and I just kind of wanted to explain to you why the hearing didn't take place. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer that.
Thank you, Maria. And I guess one thing to consider also is the cost of going ahead and having a formal hearing relative to that $200 cost that effectively is being absorbed by the board in this type of a mediation arrangement, in which the board's proposed discipline was ultimately agreed to. In my mind, that's probably a good trade.
Yes, absolutely. Especially in the interest of time. And Stuart and I do make efforts before getting to mediation to kind of settle the matters. Of course, we do everything we can, but sometimes it does take, the third party and the judge coming in and just offering more perspective in order to get things settled.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Maria. Any questions or comments for Maria on the explanation with respect to the hearing resolution? All right, we'll go ahead and proceed next to the item on the agenda that follows that, which is the reinstatement application evaluation of a revoked license permit. In this case, it's for a Mr. Sood. And under our board policies, effectively, we have a two-meeting policy. So at the first meeting, of which this is the first of two meetings for consideration of this item, we basically consider whether the application is in good form. We do not, at this meeting, make a decision based on reinstatement. That will occur at the second meeting, assuming that the board clears the application to proceed to that second meeting. And so with that background, Wendy and Maria, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, before we delve into this, Assistant Commissioner Compton's on the phone, And I just believe would like to just say a few words to the board members, if that's okay.
Certainly, that would be great. And Mr. Compton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Monroe. Thank you, Wendy. Everybody, hey, it's great to see you virtually this morning. Sorry, we're not all together in person. These times certainly dictate using other means, but thanks for your service to the state and to the department. This board is fantastic. Y'all do some great work. And some of that's the compliment of the staff, Wendy and Karen and our legal team, but that's also because of good volunteers from the industry and the public, such as yourselves. And so thank you for your time. Just really quickly, the department, we kind of went home mid-May like so many other industries, but we've been able to serve the public and continue helping folks out in this industry and many other industries across the board. The only thing we haven't been able to do until recently is service people who came in person. There's not many people in the accountancy group that comes in person. Y'all are virtually 100% online, which is fantastic and in line with our goals. But we have, starting at the beginning of July, started to service people, carefully service people who come into the building with appointments. We've had maybe 4 so far. So we've been able to do that. The other divisions of our department have also been able to continue to service the public. And so we've been very proud of that fact. And Commerce and Insurance was a very early adopter of the AWS system that allows employees to work from home. I think as we continue to move forward, we'll continue with that. Through the end of August, we'll be virtually meeting. We'll kind of reassess things as the governor's orders permit and as the need exists. And so we'll continue to look at that. And so hopefully at some point in the near future, we'll all get to be together and maybe shake hands, but maybe socially distance, we'll see. But, I wanted just to come and say thank you for what you guys do, for what the Tennessee Society of CPAs does. I saw Brad and Sarah Fitzgerald on the call. So y'all's industry is so well represented. And I just want to say thank you so much. If there's ever anything I can do for you, if there's ever a need that arises, certainly reach out. But I can't say enough about Wendy. I've known her for maybe 20 years now, and the work that she does and the leadership that she provides. So y'all are blessed in that regard. If y'all get any questions for me, I'd be happy to take those now, but I certainly don't want to hang up y'all's meeting. I just wanted to just bring some greetings and thanks to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Compton, and thanks for the commission's support of our board from a staffing perspective, and also, for example, for things like this, allowing us to meet virtually and get our business done in the safest manner possible. And I know, that's not easy, and it's not easy for us not to be together. I mean, humans are social beings. That's just the way we're wired. And I look forward to the day when we can safely do that, but appreciate all the support. Any comments or questions for Deputy Commissioner Compton?
Judy, thank you for the compliment on the hat. My Martin's barbecue hat. Pat and I were in college together, so thank you.
That's outstanding, and thank you for joining us, Mr. Compton. Appreciate that very much.
Thanks, Chairman Monroe. Y'all have a good meeting.
Okay, thanks. Wendy, we'll turn it back to you and Maria.
Okay, great. I will try to summarize this, and Maria, jump in for anything that I misspeak about or that you need to clarify. Mr. Sood has submitted applications to reinstate his individual license and his firm permit. In May of 2013, those licenses were revoked via an agreed order based on a felony conviction for bankruptcy fraud. So related to concealing assets during a personal bankruptcy. And the order not only revoked the license, it also required him, if he ever requested reinstatement, for him to appear before the board. It also required that he was not able to request reinstatement for at least 2 years. So of course, we've passed that time period. He must provide counsel with state documentary evidence from the U.S. Probation Office that the terms of a supervised release had been concluded and evidence that he had paid the state the investigatory and hearing costs in the matter of $200. So we have verified the payment. And I believe, Maria, you also received the probation information from Mr. Sood. Is that correct?
Yes, I received official documentation that he has been discharged from probation.
Okay. And so, again, today is not really to get into the specifics of the violations and why he was revoked, but it is to look at the application and make sure that it is complete, or both of them. We have 2 applications. He has completed the applications, he has paid the application fees, and then he has satisfied those items within the order that were requested at that time. So to our knowledge, to the staff's knowledge, this is a complete application, and so we ask the board to approve that, and then we will ask that he appear at the October meeting for you all to ask questions and determine whether you would like to grant the individual license and firm permit. Reinstate.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for that explanation, and Maria for that background. Are there any questions at this point of Wendy or Maria regarding at least this element of the reinstatement process for Mr. Sood?
I have one question. This is Larry. This always confuses me on these applications, but on the application, there's a question that says, do you currently hold a license or an active license or something? And on one of the forms, he answered it yes, and on the other, he answered it no. I don't have it in front of me right now, so I can't point to the page or whatever, but it's on the main page where it asks, do you currently hold a license? Does anybody see that?
Yes, Larry.
There's 2 places where he answered it, and in one place he answered it yes, and one place he answered it no.
So technically where he answered it yes, it does get confusing, but where he answered it as yes is technically a way for staff, when this comes to the building, it may come through mail, it may come through a general email, and it is intended to help people find this person in the system.
Yeah.
And he technically does have a license number. So I don't know that I would get too hung up on that answer. It can be a confusing answer because he does have a license with a number. It doesn't say, are you currently actively licensed? So it can be confusing. And where he answered yes was really an attempt. It was that part is a cover letter to help those in the mailroom or whatever understand where to send this.
Okay. Well, the fact that it wasn't consistent is yes one place, and that is, I didn't know if that was okay or not.
If you'll see on the next page, I know you said you didn't have it in front of you, but you know, there are questions about, have you been engaged in the practice of public accountancy? You know, and he's answered all of those questions appropriately. You know, he hasn't been practicing, he's not been using the designation. And then he appropriately answered that he did have a felony and those types of things.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Maria, do you have any concerns?
I do not, and I think, like you said, it's just an indicator of his past license number. So I don't think he would submit, you know, willfully something lying to the board at this point in the process. I don't have any concern with that.
Okay, thank you, Wendy and Maria, and Larry, also thank you for that good question. Any other comments or questions as to where we are at this point in the reinstatement process, the 2-meeting reinstatement process?
Larry, Kevin, this is Janet. Wendy, where there's a place for a signature under those questions that you were just asking. Is he supposed to sign there to affirm that that information is true?
It does appear that he should. He's signed in other places, but did not sign on that page. I can certainly send that back to him and have him sign that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be good since he's affirming that all of those assertions are correct.
Yes.
Okay.
We can do that. Judy, I'm not sure understand your questions in the chat. Do you want to address the group?
Sure. I typically, anytime someone's been through disciplinary action and that sort of thing, I just do a little, quick search and kind of look and see if they're using the designation or not. And I found that he has been using that. And it's even on his LinkedIn that it lists CPA. And I don't know, he's saying on that application that he's not using it, but I found like in less than 10 minutes, 6 places it was referred to as him being a CPA.
Okay. I think probably what we could do is if the board is willing to approve the application, we could have legal counsel do a review of that. Would that be fair, Maria, and have information related to that at the next meeting?
That's what I would recommend. And you can ask those questions and I'll present what I find, and we can get Sherry to look as well, and just kind of search online and see. Sometimes those, I'm not saying it's right or defending him, just want to give a full picture that sometimes those aren't maybe updated in a while. People say, oh, that's not run by me or that kind of thing. They're not defending, but sometimes,
right.
There are other factors to consider. So yeah, I'll be happy to do a thorough search into if he's been holding out, because that is in the agreed order that he entered into. It was, prohibited that he would not assert himself as a CPA. So I will do that, and we can give you more information in advance of next meeting, and then you'll be able to ask him questions regarding that.
Okay, that's good for me. Should I pass along what I have, or?
It's fine. I'll be able to find it. Thank you, Judy.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Appreciate that question and those observations. Any other comments or questions with respect to this first stage of the reinstatement process for Mr. Sood? If not, then the way I would suggest that we proceed is that we have a motion that approves the acceptance of the reinstatement application pending the obtaining of the final signature on the signature page that was referenced earlier with respect to the cover page of the reinstatement application. And then that we would proceed, if this motion is approved, to invite him to appear before us at our October meeting for the second stage of the reinstatement process, where we will actually discuss the substance of his reinstatement. So is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion. This is Andy.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate that. And is there a second to that motion?
I'll second. This is Gay.
Thank you, Gay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Karen, will you please call the roll on that motion?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby,
Aye.
Thank you, Karen. The motion to accept the reinstatement application passes unanimously, and then we'll proceed to secure Mr. Sood's signature on the cover page and then set up the scheduling for the October 2020 meeting. The next item on the agenda is our NASBA updates, the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy updates. And with respect to the NASBA overall board report, we'll turn to our Southeast Board Representative, Andy Bonner. Andy, thanks for your hard work, not only just year round, but in helping us for the regional breakouts at the virtual meeting that was held in June, which I thought went very well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, it's my honor to serve and represent the state of Tennessee and the board. And so I do that to say that if any board members have any concerns whatsoever, please reach out, talk to me about it, tell me your concerns, and let me take it back. We had a very successful regional meeting, and that developed into a board meeting last week where the regional directors got together on Thursday and went over all the comments that were made at each breakout session. We had an exciting breakout session getting to elect a nominee for the nominations committee, and Janet Booker Davis. It took 3 votes and then another ad hoc committee to get it done, but we're very proud of her, and we had 2 excellent candidates. Actually, we had 3 excellent candidates. That was just a tough vote, and it came down to where we had 2 Tennessee. If nobody knows, Larry Elmore was up for the vote too, and just impeccable resumes from all 3. And it was distinctly an honor to have 2 people from Tennessee on that, and it was exciting. One of the things that was talked about in our committee was how many people we had from the State Board of Accountancy represented in our regional meeting. So I applaud the state board for being active and reaching out and being a part of that, and invite you to be sure and sign up for the virtual meeting that's going to be in November, and just say that a lot of good things are happening at NASBA, and you can really hear a different side, so that you get the AICPA and NASBA side, and they're working a lot together on different items, and they really are there to represent the boards of accountancies in all 55 jurisdictions. We also had a board meeting on Friday, and just to update you on a couple of things, everybody got an email yesterday talking about CPA evolution, and it passed at the state board or at the NASBA board level, which was very exciting to be a part of. The next is we're going to put together committees, task force for education, for changes that are needed, for the CPA exam, for changes that are needed there, and also for the UAA rules changes, and then actually give the different boards and jurisdictions the time to change the legislative issues that may occur associated with that. We learned yesterday that that we really don't have any legislative issues as such, but there are some changes that we need. NASBA is also, to give you an update, they're not full capacity coming back yet. They have told the employees, hey, if you want to come back in the office and work now, come on in, but at your comfort level. So they're slowly starting to come back into the office. With that, there have been some issues with the current phone system that they have that caused delays in getting phone calls to anybody who called in or emails. And with that, the NASBA has elected to obtain a new phone system that has been purchased, and that will help streamline the working from home, whereas they can answer just like they're sitting at their desk. So that's going to help out with, especially with some issues related to people who were sitting for the exam that had questions. So more about that. As kind of Wendy said, we got some updated numbers on Prometric, and to kind of dovetail off of what she said, Prometric has about 93% of their sites open worldwide right now. They sold 77% of their seats in July, and 70% of their seats have been sold already for August. With that, their goal is to be at 120%. They're going to extend hours and days to get all the backlog done. And so that was kind of interesting to see that NASBA and the AICPA are working with them to open that up and get that pipeline open and make sure that anybody who wants to sit for exam can. We learned that most of the states went ahead and extended the credits that people had on the exam to December of 2020. So I'm sure that there'll be more to come in that area, depending on what happens with the virus. So that, you know, that's a good sign that people are working together. Wendy also mentioned ALD, and you know, the goal there is to get 55 jurisdictions. 53 are online right now. 54 is Utah, and it'll be on in the next couple of months. And the 55th one was actually approved, but Hawaii is looking for the funding so that they can actually kind of bring that one online. So we will have all 55. With that, also CPE Services is still adding many states to that. And so that's part of the rules engines that kind of works with ALD. When you talk about the continuous exam, we found out that there was 51 jurisdictions who are actually accepting continuous examinations. There'll be three more states that will come on pretty soon. There's one state that will not be able to come on because of legislation issues until 2021. And so hopefully they'll get that worked out. One thing that was rather interesting was I think everybody knows that the AICPA went after .cpa. There was a lot of discussion about that a year ago. They now own that site, and so they won the bid from Google. They're going to start rolling that out in September of 2020. And so with that, you know, they're going to not only roll it out to CPAs, but also to firms, and they're going to roll it out worldwide. The AICPA is establishing a process that will include review of license and permit status upon application. But the main privileges are to be suspended if the AICPA learns that the license or firm permit has lapsed or been revoked. Though it will not actively monitor that, the licensure, it's going to audit it, the people who are on .cpa. So there was some discussion there about, okay, well, you know, can they use some kind of automated function to show them whenever there's an issue with somebody's licensing. As you know, you can go out on the Verify CPA right now and find that. So there's probably more to come in that area, but expect that to happen. So if you want .cpa is your email, then be sure and jump on that in September, because that's going to come. There's the last of this is there's going to be a new board orientation virtual meeting, and it will be August the 20th from 10 a.m. to 3 o'clock Central. I encourage you, if you have never been to the orientation meeting for NASBA, jump on there if you have the time. It's a great meeting. You actually get to hear from the leaders of NASBA and also from Ken Bishop and Colleen. So you actually get to hear specifically how NASBA works, what the committees are, and it's a great session. Wendy has that invitation, so it's not limited to new board members. It's limited to people who have never, you know, if you've never been to one before, you can sign up and go, and highly encourage you to consider that. As Wendy's already said, the annual meeting virtually is going to be November the 2nd through the 4th. Encourage everybody on the board to sign up for that. It'll be a great meeting, a lot of good information. The ED conference has been scheduled next year for April the 12th through the 14th. And then our Eastern Regional will be a repeat of this one of last year, where we couldn't go to White Sulphur Springs. They're going to have it at White Sulphur Springs, and it'll be June the 21st through June the 23rd, 21. So encourage you to mark that date and kind of consider that. The regional meetings are fantastic, and you know, a lot of it's getting together with other board members from across the United States, or actually from the East, and it really is a great event to be a part of, and highly encourage it. with that, that's all I have to report. It was a very informative meeting. A lot of exciting things are going to come down. I think you'll hear more on CPA evolution and what the timeframes are. That should be coming out in the next month or two. And so just an exciting time for the profession.
Andy, thanks so much. You know, I can't envision that there's a more enthusiastic regional board member on NASBA's board than you are. And I just, I know that we all greatly appreciate the way with which you have really sprung into action in that role, and not just benefiting the Tennessee board, but all of the fellow boards in the Southeastern region that you represent. So we just can't thank you enough for that.
It's my honor. Thank you.
You bet. Any questions for Andy with respect to the NASBA Board of Directors report? All right, we'll move on to NASBA committee updates. And, you know, one of the things that Andy alluded to, you know, that's I think being acknowledged by NASBA's leadership is just the strong involvement that the Tennessee board has in NASBA issues, not only having our Southeast representative coming from the Tennessee board, and now Janet Booker Davis representing our board and the Southeast region on the nominating committee board. But we've got several of our members who serve on various NASBA committees and have done so for a number of years. And so I'll turn the floor over to them, and I'll just try to go in alphabetical order here. Janet Booker Davis, any updates with respect to the committees that you're working with?
Well, first, I'd like to say thank you to this board for the support related to the nominating committee. I'm happy about being able to serve on that committee, and also thanks as well to the other regional people who were involved in getting that done. I'm on the ERB Examination Review Board for NASBA, and we completed our work for the 2019 review, and the results of that review were reported out at both Eastern and Western regional meetings in June. And that report did indicate that the state boards could continue to rely on the CPA exam, and also international qualifications examination. That's also part of the review of the ERB. So with that, our work for 2019 was completed, and we'll begin working on 2020 later this fall. So that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Pam Church, any reports on the committees and task forces that you were serving on?
I'm on the CBT, which is involved in administering the CPA exam. And the big topic there, as well as on the AICPA update that I listened in on recently, we were all invited to that, is possibly administering the exam remotely. That would be a huge step. They're looking into security issues and acquiring the appropriate software. And it sounds like they're quite seriously considering it. Wendy, I don't know if you've heard any updates about that, but they talked extensively about that on the AICPA update, and as well as it's an ongoing topic with the CBT.
So just to piggyback on what Pam was saying, they are considering remote testing. Executive directors were able to demo the remote proctor process that Prometric has, and it was quite impressive. I do think there's still challenges, and of course NASBA needs to be on board with this and kind of give their approval, which means the state boards need to be on board. And of course, you all have not really been made aware of this or been given a lot of information yet. So we are kind of still waiting on that piece. We were hopeful that maybe there would be some virtual sessions that you all could attend to see what the director saw. just to get a sense for yourselves what the remote proctoring would look like and what the challenges are going to be. I'm sure you can guess many of them, but it's not a done deal yet. It's still being explored, and I'm hoping there'll be some information soon that you all will be able to see.
Thank you, Wendy. And Pam, any further comments or
I
updates?
think that's it. That's been the big topic. That's
Okay.
been, and then getting everything back up and running after the spring. And as Wendy said, every one of the students I heard back from, the ones who graduated from the master's in May, were very positive about the recent developments and very negative about the spring. It was a disaster, the spring. So some of them had to postpone twice. You can imagine after you study, that's disheartening. And I mean, just because of where our students come from, I heard from about 5 different states, and they're all back up and running in that.
That's good news. Well, thank you, Pam. And let's see, Larry, any report with respect to the NASBA Audit Committee?
Well, Judy and I actually both serve on that committee. So we were, the Tennessee board was well represented, or is well represented. We had a meeting in May, just a planning meeting. And Judy, you're welcome to chime in on this too. Spent some time with the auditors from LBMC who do the audit for NASBA, just planning the audit, talking about areas we wanted them to focus on, and talked about risk assessment and those kinds of things. And they will be back on site doing the audit. Well, probably they may be there now, I'm not sure, but, or they may not be there. They may be doing the audit remotely, as most people do now, but we'll meet again in September. This is a very time intensive committee because they send out drafts of the financials, drafts of the communication letters, drafts on the responses from the client and so forth. So a lot of time spent reviewing preliminary reports, and then we meet in person, hopefully in September, late September, but not sure. But it's kind of in the planning phase right now. So Judy, if you want to chime in on any of that, you're welcome to.
I don't have anything to add. You did a fantastic job, Larry, and it's a good committee. I'm enjoying it. I've been on like 3 or 4 committees now, so I've kind of made my rounds there at NASBA.
Judy, I just think that's great. Not only on the current audit committee, but on the other committees, to kind of give you, and through you, us, some exposure into NASBA's activities. And so I'm just thankful for each and every one of our members who are going above and beyond and volunteering on our committee structures. And Judy, any other comments unrelated to the audit committee that you'd like to focus on?
No, just wish we would get back to having concerts and all that, so my industry, our Nashville music industry, can come back to life.
I understand. All right. Well, thank you, Judy, and also thank you, Larry and Pam and Janet. I just appreciate your service, and Andy as well. Any other? I think my recollection is I've got everyone covered. But if there's someone else serving, please feel free to chime in with respect to your committees. All right. I'm showing it's right at 9:30. And if the board is amenable, what I'd like to suggest is that we take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 9:40 Central Time. And then we'll go ahead and take care of the balance of the agenda, which will be our board committee reports, our legislative updates, and then our organizational elements here under old and new business. So we will plan to reconvene at 9:40 a.m. Central Time here in about 10 minutes. Remember to go on mute and stop your video here unless y'all want us to see and hear whatever's going on break. Karen, if you're there, can you just kind of do a quick informal roll call to make sure we've got everybody back? Well, let's see. Well, we'll just kind of go around the horn. Let's see. I see Andy, you're back and online.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay, and let's see. I've got Greg Gilbert's back and online,
Yes.
and Janet Booker Davis. I see you.
Yes.
Judy Weatherby.
Yes.
Excellent. Let's see. Larry Elmore.
Yes.
All right, and Stephen Eldridge.
Yes.
Great. And let's see. We've got Trey Watkins.
I'm here.
And Pam Church. Okay, it does not look like Todd has rejoined us yet from his unified command meeting here with the governor's office, but hopefully he'll still be able to join us a little bit later on in the meeting here. And let's see, I may have asked this, but Gay, just want to make sure you're back as well.
I am.
Okay, great. I know I'm missing someone here. Anybody else that I've not called yet?
Kevin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, we will go ahead and start with the board committee reports. The way our board typically does its business is we'll have committee meetings on the preceding afternoon, which are posted and accessible to the public. And so the licensing committee, along with the enforcement and laws and rules and executive committees, met yesterday afternoon telephonically or via teleconference. And we'll begin with the licensing report. I may push the enforcement committee report back to the end, similar to what we did yesterday, to give Todd Skelton, who's a member of that committee, a chance to join in on that. But we'll start with licensing and turn it over to Gay Moon, the chairperson of the licensing committee.
Thank you, Kevin. The first item on our agenda was NASBA's request of our consideration of an NTSU graduate level course, Accounting Analytics, course number 6350, to be considered as an upper division accounting course for the purposes of qualifying for sitting for the exam. After a discussion, the committee voted to recommend to the board that we accept this course specifically as an upper division accounting course. So is it appropriate for me to make a motion that the full board accept this course as an upper division accounting course?
Certainly, Gay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Judy.
Judy, thank you for the second. Any discussion or question here with respect to this action item? Hearing none. Karen, will you please call the roll? We may not have Karen back with us.
Kevin, I can call it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Kevin Monroe.
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge.
Aye.
Gay Moon.
Aye.
Andy Bonner.
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis.
Aye.
Pam Church.
Aye.
Larry Elmore.
Aye.
Greg Gilbert.
Aye.
Trey Watkins.
Aye.
And Judy Weatherby.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for calling the roll, and that motion passes unanimously. And Gay, turn it back over to you.
Okay. The second item was another kind of a data analytics with a different twist. This is a biostatistics course. The NASBA is not asking for this to be treated as an accounting course, but to qualify as one of the general courses that are also required for sitting for the exam. After our discussion, the committee voted to again recommend full board accept it as a general business course for purposes of qualifying for sitting for the exam. So I make a motion that the board accept this course as a general business course.
Okay, thank you, Kay. We have a motion, and did the second come from Stephen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. We have a motion and a second. On that, is there any further discussion or question concerning the motion before the board? If not, Wendy, will you go ahead and call our roll again?
Sure. Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Jay Moon,
Aye.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And that motion also passes unanimously. Okay, any other items with respect to the licensing committee?
Yeah. Related to a candidate who we have identified as ZJ because I do not know how to pronounce his name, but he passed 2 parts of the exam and is unable to travel back to the U.S. because of travel bans issued by the president. So he has requested an extension. We previously extended our credits through December 31 of 2020. And this young man is requesting an additional extension because he is unable to get back into the country through the end of 2021. And after some discussion, the committee voted to recommend to the full board that we extend his credits, 2 credits, through December of 2021 to allow him to come back into the country, hopefully, and sit for the exam and get everything passed by the end of 2021. So with that, I make a motion that we extend his credits through December 31 of 2021.
I'll second Judy.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Gay and a second by Judy Weatherby. Is there any further comment or question or discussion on this motion? If not, Wendy, will you call the roll on the motion?
Karen may be back with us. Are you,
Okay.
Karen? Okay, I'm not hearing her. Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Ben Eldridge,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for calling the roll, and that motion also passes unanimously. And Gay, any other items from the licensing committee to report out?
Yes, we had one last minute addition. This related to Mr. Beckett, who took the exam back in 2008 and 2009. He passed all 4 parts. During that time, there was an economic downturn, and he was able to secure a position allowing him to have a direct CPA supervisor. So he could not meet the experience requirements. Well, he has now gotten that experience. However, the 10-year expiration period has passed, and he asked us to consider extending that 10 years. Well, in some of the discussions, it came to light that the education requirements have changed. So the committee asked that legal look into the ability that the board might have to accept the education that he had at the time of passing the exam. So Maria, if you have any information that could help us, that would be great.
Thank you. Yes, and I appreciate your all patience yesterday. I just wanted to be sure that we were clear for the board to approve the education piece, but I have reviewed the statute and rules, and the board does have that authority. So you all can proceed in approving the 10-year extension in conjunction with the education.
Okay, Does it, we did not take a vote as board member, as a committee, up to a full discussion by the board today. So I don't know if anybody else has any other questions or have any comments about this.
I have a question, and this is a little bit off from what we've been talking about, but he commented that he had been teaching, but not under the direct supervision of a CPA, so that would not count. Wendy, what are the requirements about counting teaching toward your education? Because I didn't know that teaching under a CPA was a requirement. I know it is in a firm, but I didn't think it was as far as.
So experience requirement does not indicate in our rules that it has to be under the direct supervision of a CPA. So I think he had a misunderstanding related to that at that time. To my knowledge, the experience has not changed, or requirement has changed. The experience requirement has not changed. It is common in other states for individuals to have to obtain that experience under the direct supervision of a CPA, but that is not true in Tennessee. The person only needs to be familiar with that person's activities and experience. So let's say that you hire somebody who worked as in the accounting field, not under a CPA, but you verified that person's employment. Then you could then sign off on that if you had gone through that process because you were familiar that they did work there and what their duties were at that time.
And can a person fulfill all of their experience through teaching?
Yes, the experience is able to be in academia.
Right. So I was thinking, if it turns out that we approve this, we might look back and see if those years might actually count, because he was under the understanding that they would not. Anyway, that was just some input from an educational person.
It's my understanding that he has some more recent experience. Is that how you all read that, or?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Other questions or comments on this particular matter?
I have a question. This is Larry. Excuse me. In the information we were sent from, I guess it was in the packet we got, there was mention that we've done something like this in the past a couple of times, but in at least one case, we required the person to do some 80 hours of CPE to get caught up. I mean, there's been a lot of standards that have happened in the last 10 years and updates and so forth. If this person had been practicing all that time as a CPA, there's been a lot of water under the dam, so to speak, on things going on in the profession and auditing standards, tax law, and so forth. I just wonder if it wouldn't be prudent to do something like that, require some CPE and some specific subjects, because once we approve the going forward and all that happens and it takes place, then this person's able to put themselves out to the world as a CPA with the understanding that they're just, have been keeping up and all that kind of thing. So I just wonder if we should discuss having him, catch up some CPE, get current on things, because I understand he's been teaching. If you look at the subjects, it's been pretty much the same thing all the time. It's been accounting and I think an IT course, but no audit, no tax, no things that might be used in the public accounting arena. So just wonder how everybody felt about that.
Thanks, Larry. Any comment or discussion on Larry's thoughts there?
I think Larry makes a good point there as far as getting caught up on the standards, being out of practice for such a long time.
Thanks, Stephen.
I fully agree. This is Judy. I think, Larry, that's very wise. perception and direction for us to consider.
So the last section of his letter indicates, and the following page indicates that he now has 3 years of experience under a CPA, and that's sounded recent to me.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean he's the CPA. I mean, it could be just his boss is a
Yeah.
CPA, but he's not practicing in
I
public
gotcha.
accounting.
I gotcha. I do the situation where you did require CPE, the person was ended up being a stay-at-home mom and was not in the workforce, and so didn't have any current work experience. So
I mean, if you compare this person to someone who just graduated from college, for example,
yeah,
I mean, look at the difference in the educational and being current on various topics, and there's just no comparison. So I just think that it would be prudent to at least have him do some catch up on the standards and so forth, because otherwise, I mean, I understand he's been teaching, but if you look at the subjects, it's been pretty much accounting. I can't remember. It seemed like it was accounting and IT. So if you look at specific areas that he might practice in with his license, in auditing or tax or consulting and so forth, it wouldn't be in those subjects he's been teaching and staying current on. So that's just my thoughts.
Hey, what about a possible modification of that we require that he have 80 hours within the last 2 years, and if not, then he needs to catch up any deficit. So the deficit might be 80 hours. He may have had no CPE, formal CPE. If he has, maybe we give him credit for those hours, but require a total of 80.
Yeah, if he's had some, that's great.
Yeah, and I might add, as part of that 80, that would include the 2-hour state-specific ethics
Sure.
requirement.
Sure.
It's almost like there's this story that we're not hearing. So he makes references to some things kind of between the lines that make you kind of wonder, why did the guy wait 10 years? Because I understand he had problems finding the job early on. Get a lot of feedback. Can y'all hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, I understand that early on he might have had issues, but I don't think it took 10 years to find a job in public accounting or with a CPA, because the public accounting arena has been hiring like crazy over the last 5, 6, 7 years, trying to find anybody that breathes that walk into the accounting firms was almost getting hired. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Larry. So let me kind of offer this up as a potential motion if anyone would care to make it, and that is that we would go ahead and grant the extension of the 10-year requirement, and also accept the qualifying education that was in effect at the time that he passed the exam. And then as an additional consideration, he would need to show completion of 80 hours of qualifying CPE credit within 2 years of being activated with respect to his license, to include the 2-hour state-specific, Tennessee state-specific ethics course.
I have a quick question maybe for legal. Would it make sense to provide any kind of time period? Like, what if he takes another 2 years to complete that 80 hours? Is there an end point where this wouldn't be acceptable?
I'm confused with the motion, because are we saying within 2 years of being reinstated, that would just be the requirements under the rule as they stand, correct? So are we saying prior to granting, not the reinstatement, but prior to granting the license,
Yes,
the 80 hours?
yes. So basically, with the application for a license, he would be asked to submit 80 hours We probably need to clarify whether that needs to be technical or not, and to include the 2 hours of state specific. So that would be an additional item that he would submit with his application. And that CPE would need to be done within the 2 years prior to the application date.
Can I ask a question? I agree wholeheartedly with the education requirement. I'm just curious from legal's perspective, do we have the ability to put that on them, considering we really don't do that? Or is it just the fact that we're actually granting him an extension, we can require that? I mean, I just need to know from legal, are we doing something so unique here that we're treating this person differently than another person applying for their application? Or is the fact that we're extending it allowing us to imply the 80 hours? I don't disagree with the 80. I just am curious.
The board has the authority to impose these requirements on this person because the rule says it's very broad and it says that the board has the sole discretion. And so I think in this instance, it's appropriate that you can require the 80 hours.
Gotcha.
Well, the other thing here is he's not only asking for an extension, but he's asking for an extension after the date has already passed. The 10 years has already gone by. So it's not like he's in anticipation of a date coming up. It's a date that's already passed.
And if he
And so I just wanted to get back to the prior question. Sorry.
Maria, go ahead.
I was just wanting to get back to the prior question about, so the question was if putting a 2-year cap on that is appropriate. Is that correct?
My question was just some sort of cap. So how long does he have to make application and submit the CPE? Is it never ending? Like, could he do that 5 years from now? Would that be appropriate? Or does he need to do it within the next year?
Are we saying he has to have it done prior to getting his license? Is that what we're saying? Is that what the group's saying?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, you want to do a 6-month timeline. If he's anxious to get his license, my assumption would be that he'd knock out these hours.
And that would just need to be made in the motion, whatever date you all have in mind or what you think is appropriate, that can just be included.
The reason I bring that up is we have a situation from a prior meeting where you all approved the reinstatement of an individual's license, provided that they submit some CPE. Well, that hasn't happened. And so how long does that approval stand? Does it stand indefinitely? And so that's why I'm talking about a potential time frame.
I think
6 months.
So was that Trey saying 6 months?
I mean, I just don't want a number.
Okay.
If the guy wants his license bad enough, he'll get it done.
So let's kind of review the bidding that we have here to kind of construct the motion here based on the comments that board members have generated. That would be to grant an extension of the 10-year rule here, since he's already surpassed that he would need to complete within 6 months, I guess, of our granting of this extension, 80 hours of qualifying CPE, including the 2-hour state-specific Tennessee ethics course. And effectively, he would have 6 months from the date of the board's approval today, if it grants its approval, in order to obtain that CPE and submit that documentation with his license application. And that we would also permit the education requirements in terms of hours to sit for the exam that occurred at the time he passed the exam to be acceptable for purposes of his application for licensure.
Yeah, Kevin, did you also include in that we would allow him to, or we would accept any CPE in the last 2 years prior to this date as part of the 80?
I did not, but I think that's a good point, Larry, and I would agree that we should consider doing so.
Yeah, So if all that you said plus what I just now said is a motion, I would second that.
All right. So let's try to recap and be clear on the motion. We're going to grant an extension of the 10-year requirement. We're going to allow or accept his formal academic education that was in place and compliant with the requirements that he, at the time that he sat for the exam. We're going to request that he complete 80 hours of CPE, including a 2-hour Tennessee state-specific ethics course. He has 6 months to do that, and we will accept any CPE that he's previously already accumulated in the last 2 years.
Second.
Okay, thanks, Larry. Any further comment or discussion?
I have a question. Just, do we need to specify what type of CPE? I know you said the CPE on ethics, but we did not stipulate audit, accounting, whatever the intention is. So he could be submitting stuff that's not going to go towards Larry's comments.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess would it suffice to have him that the 80 hours should comply with the, I guess the, well, that might not work. I'm thinking the AICPA requirements, which typically require, 20 hours of technical training over a 2-year period.
Kevin, the typical CPE required for a restatement or reactivation is 80 technical hours.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Wendy.
That may be the best we can do.
Are folks comfortable with that, making the CPE requirement 80 technical hours?
What about the state-specific ethics? That's 2 hours. Is that considered technical, or is that? I can't remember.
It is considered technical, and the way I'm hearing it is that the 80 would include the 2 hours of state specific.
Yes.
So it'd still
Okay.
be 80 total hours to include 80 total technical hours to include 2 hours of board approved state ethics.
And that we would, as in the original motion, we would also continue to accept technical hours that he's accumulated in the preceding 2 years to this date. Okay. Trey, does that, I think, address your concern?
It does.
Okay. Any further comment or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I hope this isn't out of order, but I just wanted to let you know that this is Todd Skelton, had joined. I will be abstaining on this vote, just given that I missed most of the debate, but just want to let you know I was here.
Thank you, Todd, and welcome back. Thank you. Okay, Karen, are you with us to call the roll?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right, if you'll go ahead and call the roll on the motion.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pamela Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Craig Gilbert,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby,
Aye.
And Karen, if you could also call the roll with respect to Todd Skelton, who's joined us, so he can formally abstain.
yes, sir, Todd Skelton,
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes. Let's see, Gay, any other items from the licensing committee?
That is all.
Okey-doke, thank you very much. We will go ahead now to the enforcement committee report, and for that, I'll turn it over to Andy Bonner.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, the Enforcement Committee met. We went through 12 legal reports. We broke them down into 3 categories: consent, proposed discipline, and representations. And so with that, we recommended 2 changes. Yesterday afternoon, everybody should have received a new updated legal report with those recommendations from the committee. With that, I'll go through the first cases. Case numbers 1 through 8 are recommendation of close, and 2 of the cases, case 5 and case 8, are for a letter of instruction to be issued. Case 5 was changed to drop one section, and it was changed in the legal report that was sent to us. Under proposed discipline, we had 2 cases, 9 and 10, that were both $1,000 civil penalty. The committee concurred with that recommendations. And then on the representations, cases 11 and 12, there was one change on case 12. The legal report was updated to go ahead and require hours to reinstate with the license being closed, and then also to attach a penalty on the backside of that license when it was reopened, if a request was ever made. With that, I recommend make a motion on per the recommendation of the committee that these be approved.
Thanks, Andy. Is there a second to that motion?
Andy, is your motion on all 12 of the cases?
Yes, sir. It's on all 12.
I have one quick question. The one that we had where Maria was going to remove the reference to referring the matter to the district attorney for unauthorized practice of law, has that been removed now?
Yes, sir, it has. It's case number 5.
Okay. All right, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Larry. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, Karen, will you please call the roll?
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldredge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby,
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Karen. The motion passes unanimously, and Andy and members of the Enforcement Committee, thank you for the diligent effort and discussion, and also Maria, just thank you with respect to your help. Also, Stuart as well, from legal counsel standpoint. Andy, any other items from the Enforcement Committee?
Yes, sir. There's one more item. We all got a copy of a case and complaint report that details all the open complaint that we currently have. It does not include any of the complaints that are on the legal report that we just presented. With that, we have on the report that we got, we have for individual CPAs, we have 16 individuals that are listed. We've got several that we haven't done anything with yet. It's just a part of the complaint has been issued, and we're following up with it. There are 5 that have been that legal has proposed the charges, and so then also there's 2 that are payments are being made that are being in the process of being closed, and then there's 3 that legal is actually monitoring. As far as firms, we have 2 that we're currently investigating. We have 2 that that hearings are expected on, and then we have 2 that payments are in process, and so it's closed with a payment plan and until the payments are made. And then we have 1 that is litigation, legal monitoring. And just want to shout out to our investigation staff, Sharon, and also our legal staff, Maria and Stuart. This is fantastic. They're really doing a great job. They're keeping the complaints rolling and really acting on them. They're doing a great job of bringing it to the committee, the Enforcement Committee, to look at, with trying every which way to solve them before they get there, which is saving us money as a board, and also saving the board a lot of discussions when we meet. So just want to compliment them and our staff for doing just a great job with enforcement. And
Thank
that's
you,
all.
Wendy.
That's all I have.
Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you. We'll next proceed to the Law and Rules Committee, and Janet Booker Davis is our chair of that committee. And Janet, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. The first item that is on our committee agenda, and we discussed this yesterday, related to proposed revisions to the Uniform Accountancy Act model rules. And Wendy went through that document for us, and I guess we agreed that it was good information and it would be helpful, the document would, in terms of having more specifics, particularly related to the 30 hours of work that's needed for the candidates to be licensed. We did note that it did not change the 150-hour rule, and we didn't necessarily have to adopt the entire document. This information was given to us, and the ask was to provide comments, and we concluded we did not need to comment on this document. Wendy, did you have any further comments that you wanted to make at this time?
I think you pretty well covered, Janet. I left the committee meeting yesterday with the same thoughts, that you all were happy with the changes in the model rules, the way they were proposed, and that it was not necessary to comment at this time.
Okay, so I don't think we need any further motions related to this item. So
I agree.
Okay, good. The next item on our agenda was to consider adding the state ethics course for licenses that were asking to be reinstated or reactivated. And the committee and pretty much everyone in the meeting was in full support of that. So I'd like to offer that as a motion, that we do make the state ethics course as a requirement for reinstatement or reactivation of licenses. And if anybody else has any comments before we get a second, that would be good.
I'll second.
Okay, and was that Gay?
Oh, it's Judy,
Or
sorry.
Judy, thank you. So we have a motion by Janet and a second by Judy. Any further comment or discussion? Hearing none, Karen, will you please call the roll on that?
Okay, sounds like we've lost her, so I will run through that. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Gay Moon,
Aye.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
and Judy Weatherby. I didn't hear you, Judy.
Oh, sorry. Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. That motion passes unanimously. And Janet, any other items from the Law and Rules Committee?
That is all we have today.
Okay, well, thank you, Janet. The last committee report is the Executive Committee. And yesterday in our committee meetings, the Executive Committee with Wendy's leadership discussed the fiscal year 20 year-to-date financial results of the Tennessee State Board of Accountancy. We also discussed the Cpe Audit results year-to-date, and then there will be one action item with respect to a mutual recognition agreement that has been developed with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants and recently approved by NASBA and its South African counterpart. Wendy, is there any specific update that you'd like to give either with respect to the Cpe audit results to date during our audit period or financial results? Wendy, if you're speaking, you looks like you may be muted. There you go.
Sorry, thank you. Just quickly, I'll recap where we are at a high level with the financials for the record. We have these, this is for period ending May of this year. Our fiscal year ends June 30, so we have 1 month remaining. So far, we've got revenue of $980,615 after the reg fee, and expenses at $781,848, leaving us on the plus side at $198,767. Expenses are running about $60,000 a month. So we will definitely put over $100,000 into reserves, unfortunately. I know that will be up in front of the legislature, unfortunately, next year as a possible sweep of the funds in our reserve account. So that is unfortunate. Our reserve balance currently stands at $1.253 million. And of course, we'll add a little bit over $100,000 without travel this year and other reduced expenses. It just increased the amount that we will end up putting in reserves. We did budget for a $17,000 loss, and so here we are today. So that covers the general nature of the financials.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. And then any highlights with respect to the Cpe audit?
Just, I think we're doing really well this year. We've highlighted the extended period of time that we've given licensees to respond to the audit. I think that's going really well. We've received and completed 330 of those. 556 were selected for audit. We have a 96% compliance rate, so we are thrilled with the results so far, and that is likely a result of submitting continuing education at renew or listing of the continuing education at renewal. So we are seeing good things. At the next meeting, we'll give you obviously the end results, and we will show you where the non-compliance rates, where the non-compliance is falling. I mentioned earlier that we're seeing non-compliance in the state-specific ethics area, but we'll give you a rundown of that as well at the next meeting.
Okay, Wendy, and thank you. And not to put you on the spot too greatly, but do you recall, or does Karen recall, what we pushed the deadline back for responding to our Cpe audit request to some date in August? And do you recall what that is, just so we can maybe put that out for any practitioners that are watching here?
The last day of August, so August 31st.
Okay. All right, thanks. Any further questions for Wendy on either the financial statement results update, fiscal year to date so far, or the Cpe audit? Okay, so we do have one action item coming out of the executive committee reporting and discussions yesterday, and that is to consider approval of the mutual recognition agreement, or MRA, with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. This would basically result in recognition for qualifying South African persons who are in good standing with respect to their licensure body, and vice versa for those that are from the U.S. subject to the NASBA AICPA jurisdiction in South Africa would also receive reciprocity. This goes through a very significant vetting process that was kind of discussed and laid out in some detail yesterday. And I would offer up a motion to approve the mutual recognition agreement with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. Is there a second? And then if there is, we'll have any discussion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Andy. We've got a second on that. Is there any further discussion or comment on the proposed motion?
Kevin, I will just mention this, kind of piggybacking on what you said yesterday. I think maybe in response to Stephen's question, possibly, but during my career, I have had the opportunity to work with several South African chartered accountants, and they have all been exceptional. And I know nothing about their licensing process, but the individuals with whom I've worked have been sharp and just outstanding as professionals.
Thanks, Greg. And I would share that view from my personal experience as well over the last 30 or so years in my firm. I appreciate that commentary. Any other thoughts or questions? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and call the roll on the motion. Karen, are you available to call the roll? I do not see your mic on, but let's just make sure.
I believe I am.
You are.
Can
We can hear
me?
you. Yes. Thank you, Karen.
Wonderful. That's good news. Andy Bonner.
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis.
Aye.
Pam Church.
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge.
Aye.
Larry Elmore.
Aye.
Greg Gilbert.
Aye.
Kevin Monroe.
Aye.
Jay Moon.
Aye.
Todd Skelton.
Aye.
Trey Watkins.
Aye.
Judy Weatherby.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Karen. That motion passes unanimously. I do not have any other items for the executive committee report. Wendy, are there any other items from your perspective there?
No, I believe that covers it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move to the next item in the agenda, which is the legislative update, and turn things over to Maria Bush, our legal counsel.
Thank you, Chairman. At this time, we do not have any legislative updates for you all, but at the next meeting, we will have updates on the rule for adding the ethics course for reinstatement. So that is all I have for you.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria. So that concludes the legislative update. The next item on the agenda is old and new business, and traditionally in our July meeting, we reorganize the board for the coming year and have a fresh election of officers. And then we begin the process of soliciting interest in the board's various committees. And so we'll go ahead and start with the election of officers. There are 3 officer positions: the chairperson of the board, the vice chairperson of the board, and the secretary of the board. And what I would suggest for board consideration is starting with nominations for the chairperson of the board, dealing with those nominations and voting, and then moving to the vice chairperson position, and then moving to the secretary position and dealing with nominations and voting separately for each of those positions in that order. Are members comfortable with that configuration?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Wendy,
yes.
were you going to kind of summarize the feedback you'd gotten regarding your email, or?
Sure. Chairman Monroe, would you like me to kind of summarize some of the feedback I had received?
Yes, please.
Okay. I think that the ask from Chairman Monroe at the last meeting was to let me know if you were interested in serving, or if you would like to see someone else serving in a particular role. And of course, this is such a gracious group of people. Almost everybody's willing to serve in any capacity that the board wishes and for that person. So I think that speaks highly of the group of people that we have serving. And of course, we've also highlighted the significant contribution that folks are making in the NASBA world and volunteering there. So everyone is contributing in one way or another. So I've definitely received feedback from folks, very appreciative of Chairman Monroe and like to see him continue in that role. So there's definitely support for that. I know Kevin is willing to do whatever the group would wishes as far as his participation. I know Andy is doing a lot of work at NASBA, and he is also interested in serving, and others have mentioned that as well, serving in an officer role. It will help him continue his service at NASBA as well. Many folks are interested and willing to serve. Stephen, Larry, Gay, all interested in serving in whatever capacity their group wishes to elect them to. So I hope that accurately summarizes the information I received.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Is anybody up for reappointment? I mean, I'm going off, but I'm just curious, who's up for reappointment? Have they received reappointment? Anybody that's wanting to, like, if we were to elect someone today, I don't know what the governor's office is doing with reappointments at this point, but if you get into this, kind of happened when I came onto the board, where we elected a slate of people and then didn't get reappointed. And so we were right back in the situation. So I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know who's up and who's not, but we just need to be cautious with that, I think.
Yeah, so we can deal with that a couple of ways. We could delay appointments until the next meeting if that's what the board chooses to do, and continue with the group that we have. Andy and Gay, I believe, are our two individuals up for reappointments.
Well, could I make just a gesture here, and y'all can do whatever you want. Again, I'm on my exit side here, so you know, I would recommend that you reappoint your current slate of officers, and I would even make that a motion, and then that kind of settles your situation, I think. Because who is right now? We've got Kevin, we've got Stephen, and who's our treasurer or secretary?
Gay.
Gay. So that throws a wrench in that. I don't know. I'm throwing that out there. Y'all may not care. You may want to delay. I don't know what the thing is, but that was an issue when I came on the board. I know that.
This is Judy. I would like to, and no offense to Stephen whatsoever. I know that he's wrapping up his tenure on the board fairly soon as well. But Andy has been serving with NASBA, and in order for him to rise in the ranks there as a representative for the state of Tennessee and for the southeastern region and all, it would be very helpful for him if he were to serve in the vice chair role. I feel like he's doing a fantastic job and devotes a great deal of time to everything for this board. And so I would like to nominate Andy as vice chair, if we could do that right now. I don't know if we do that now or the next meeting or whatever.
Judy, thank you for that nomination and that consideration, and also Trey, thank you for kind of the pointing out the nature of the appointment and timing of the appointment process. I think the threshold question really is, does the board want to wait until the October meeting when the appointments presumably will be settled by then, with respect to all of us, and any, we know we'll have at least one new board member in October to succeed Trey if the governor completes the appointment process. To me, that's kind of the threshold question. Does the board want to go ahead and proceed today with officer selection, or would it rather wait till October? And I think once we decide that, then Judy, we can kind of work through the individual nomination process. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to proceed today with the new nominees.
Okay, Greg, so you're opting to want to proceed today with the new nominees.
Correct.
Okay. Other comments or discussion on that notion?
I think we should proceed today also. I think if we wait till October, it's going to shorten that term significantly.
Okay. Other comments or discussion?
I have no involvement on the appointments process right now. The only, I guess, downside of that is a potential, change in composition for some reason that would require action. I have no indication that that's likely or unlikely. I would probably bet unlikely. So there's probably a little risk there, but that's probably the biggest wrinkle that we would have to address in the issue at the October meeting, which would be possible. So I'm fine to go along with what appears to be the will of the board on addressing this now, per usual.
Okay. Other comments or thoughts on whether to address now or wait until October? Just hearing the commentary, I haven't heard any outright objections necessarily to addressing it now. And so if that's the case, then what I would recommend we do is go ahead and proceed with the organizational votes today for our election or selection of officers. And then if something does change because of the gubernatorial appointment process that affects one of our sitting officers at that time, we will deal with it when that arises. So if that be the case, then I think what we'll do is go ahead and solicit nominations for chairperson, deal with that election, and then move to vice chairperson, deal with that, and then move to the secretary position and deal with that. So at this point, the floor is open for nominations for chairperson, and then what we'll do, if there are multiple nominees, we will I would suggest that we vote in a manner similar to the prior year, where Wendy, as the executive director, would essentially conduct the vote tallying similar to what we did last year, and give each candidate a chance to kind of make any comments that they would like for consideration.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Kevin Monroe, yourself, as chair.
Andy beat me to it.
So sounds like we have a nomination, one nomination for Kevin Monroe and a second to that. Are there other nominations?
Chairman Monroe, I believe that you are the nominee. So should we go through the roll call on that?
Yes, let's go ahead and proceed with the roll call.
Karen, are you available for that? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, I don't hear.
Hi,
I think
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay! All right, I'm having a trouble. The program's not letting me unmute myself at will. For the vote, Andy Bonner.
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis.
Aye.
Pam Church.
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge.
Aye.
Larry Elmore.
Aye.
Brett Gilbert.
Aye.
Kevin Monroe.
Aye.
Gay Moon.
Aye.
Todd Shelton.
Aye.
Trey Watkins.
Aye.
Judy Weatherby.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Karen, and thanks to each of the board members. I think, as Wendy outlined, this is a great board to serve on because everybody is so committed to doing the right thing and to kind of continuing to serve the profession and the public. And I just don't think it could be a greater blessing and honor to serve. And so I appreciate your faith in me here going forward for this next year. And just want to say a sincere thanks to all of you. What we'll do now is proceed with nominations for the vice chair position. And so the floor will be open for nominations.
I nominate Andy Bonner. This is Judy Weatherby.
Okay, Judy, we have a nomination for Andy Bonner. Is there a second to that nomination?
Second.
We have a second, and was that Greg?
Greg.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Greg, we have a nomination and a second for Andy Bonner as vice chair. Are other nominations? The floor is open for other nominations for vice chair. Hearing none, I will call for the closure of nominations for the vice chair position and ask Karen to call the roll.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
You get my eye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Jay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton, Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby.
Aye.
Todd, I don't believe I caught your answer.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. And congratulations, Andy, for your service upcoming here as vice chair of the board. The remaining officer position is that of secretary, and the floor is now open for nominations for secretary.
Mr. Chairman, this is Greg again. I would nominate Larry Elmore. Larry has served the profession well, served our state board extremely well, and as has Gay. And Gay, thank you for your service as secretary. I personally think it might be good to rotate some of those positions, but I am very appreciative of Andy's service on both our board and on his NASBA committee, and again, his service to the profession.
Okay, thank you, Greg. So we have a nomination for Larry Elmore for the position of secretary. Is there a second to that nomination?
This is Judy, and I will second.
Judy Weatherby seconds that nomination, and the floor is open for additional nominations. Hearing none, I'll declare that the nomination process is closed for the position of secretary, and we'll ask Karen to call the roll.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge,
Aye.
Larry Elmore, Greg Gilbert.
Excuse me, I was on mute. Aye.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gilbert,
Aye.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Jay Moon,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Judy Weatherby.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Karen. The vote confirms Larry Elmore as our secretary position, and I think the remaining comments that I would make, particularly for Stephen Eldridge's service as our vice chair and also for Gay's service as our secretary, is just that of appreciation. And we have a board full of servant leaders. And that service is just appreciated not only on the NASBA committees, but also in our board leadership positions and in our board committee positions. And similar to what we've done in the prior years, what I will do is ask if you have a preference for serving on one of our standing committees, please communicate that preference to Wendy, our executive director. And also if you have a preference for serving or nominating someone to chair one of those committees, please also indicate that to Wendy. And then prior to our October meeting, what we'll do is formulate a draft population of our committees for board consideration and approval at the October meeting. At this point, I think that concludes, unless we have any other old or new business to discuss.
Mr. Chairman, I've got one thing under new business I'd like to discuss and kind of talk about. When we were at the regional meeting for NASPA, we had a lot of comment about the CPA evolution and also about education and what was going to be coming down the pike. Tennessee has a long history of being really involved with the CPA profession at the university and college level. We have a lot of great universities, large ones. We have outstanding smaller colleges throughout the state. And we're just very fortunate to have a lot of educators who are very active in our profession. We always have in the state. And it just goes to show where we kind of sit in the CPA profession across the nation. One of the things that I was happy to see and excited was that Pam Church was very vocal in that meeting in talking about CPA evolution and about the changes that were coming from the different courses to the CPA exam to the UAA and what would be recommended there. Now that the CPA evolution has passed, we actually have an opportunity to gather up those educators and continue the talk that Pam had during that meeting. At one point, Colleen Conrad came back to Pam and said, hey, if you would like NASPA and the AICPA to come and jointly speak to the educators of Tennessee, that can be arranged, and we would be happy to. And what I would like to propose is that, as a motion, is that we have our executive director reach out to the Tennessee Society of CPAs and come up with a list of educators throughout the state and actually reach out to NASPA and the AICPA and get them to come in and do a Zoom session with to talk about the changes, to have a voice heard in Tennessee with this unique change and this historic change that we're going to have in the profession from a learning and test kind of standard. And so I would recommend that we consider that and make that as a motion to the board.
Okay, thank you, Andy. First, is there a second to that motion?
Wait, what is the motion? I'm sorry, I'm not following. If they want to come speak to our educators, why are we voting on that?
They have to be asked by either the state board or the state society to actually come and speak to our educators. And at that point, what they're requesting is that we actually pull together the meeting date and invite the educators across the state. Otherwise, they will not come to Tennessee and do that. And so the motion is for us to allow our executive director to reach out to Tennessee Society of CPAs and to then come up with to contact NASPA and the AICPA to set a date, at which point then with the state board and also the state society come up with a list of educators across the state that would be invited to that Zoom meeting, that virtual meeting to talk about the changes that are coming and to get, to allow our educators to be a part of that and to ask questions and to understand exactly where we're going so that our colleges and universities maintain, a top ranking across the nation in the education of accounting.
I would second that, and I enthusiastically support the idea. I know that a lot of people are not aware. I mean, in spite of all the communication that's gone out, a lot of people are not aware of the changes, of the purposes behind the changes, and possible repercussions. I think it would be a great service to the educators and to the students, and I love that the educators would have an opportunity to give input to key people with those two groups.
I mean, I think this is going to affect practitioners just as much as educators, not to slight one side or the other. Are we going to exclude our practitioners from this as well?
Well, this would just be a round one to get the educators involved, because in order to kind of go down the road, we're going to have to understand what evolution is, make sure the educators understand it, get input from the educators, and let them see exactly what's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of things coming down the pike in the next 3-6 months that will actually start that process. And in doing so, the educators would be the first ones that would kind of come. So I think what you're going to see here, Stephen, is you're going to see committees appointed that will actually come back and recommend that these are the different changes that we need to have in the CPA exam. We've already done that once, and actually we've done it several times throughout the last year and a half. But I think you'll see it more robust and actually planned out to get input from the profession, from the firms, from the individuals that are actually in the field now, and then also from students and educators. But I think the first step is the educators.
Well, the educators.
Well, hang on. Wait. Can I say something here? Because I totally disagree with that statement, Andy. I mean that respectfully, but if you're not putting out what the practitioners are wanting, that makes no difference what you do when you go back and talk to the educators, because really the practitioners are the ones driving what is needed out of the education process. So I think that's backwards.
Thank you, Trey. And then Pam, I believe you had a comment.
I was just going, I agree, Trey. I think you're right that sometimes there has not been a good connection with the practitioners and what they want, but the educators have to implement it. And I don't know if people realize to what extent schools have to scramble, and particularly the small schools, but all schools have to scramble when there's a change on the CPA exam. So on the CBT committee, they were talking about doing away with governmental accounting on the CPA exam. Well, that could mean a whole position. It could be that some schools have someone who only teaches governmental accounting, and there goes their job. There are just so many implementation issues that schools have to be aware of. When you put this in place, it doesn't just happen. I mean, the testing, we say the testing doesn't drive the education, but there's a reality there where they have to be coordinated. But Trey, I don't think at all that diminishes what you're saying. So that's important too.
I just like to be asked sometime what we need as a profession.
Yes. And
someone just change the exam and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. I think people really need to get a good feel for what the profession is demanding. I think people assume they know what the profession is demanding, but I've never been asked. I mean, I don't know. So I don't know. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I have no problems with NASBA speaking to anybody. But I do hope that the people on the NASBA committees will go back and tell them that, hey, the profession matters, the practitioners matter. And if you don't put out what the practitioners want, you're going to have a big problem on your hands. So I just think you need to start asking the practitioners what they're demanding.
And I would say that, Trey, that, that question was asked. It's not NASBA putting on this course here or this Zoom meeting. It's also the AICPA too. And that was part of the evolution project. And that was just voted by NASBA and the AICPA. And, as NASBA reached out to boards of accountancies, AICPA at the same time reached out to practitioners and reached out to the industry. And so they had a joint committee that did this, and they came back with these recommendations that these changes be made through the evolution project. And so that's what we'll be talking about, is those changes and now getting down into the weeds of those changes instead of just the tree level about which changes. And then that will come back and more discussion will be made from the practitioner standpoint, from the educator standpoint, from the regulatory boards positions. And so it's kind of bringing all three of those together so that we can achieve a certain date to make those changes.
Andy, may I ask one more question?
Yes, ma'am.
I know a lot of what drove some of the recent changes to the CPA exam was a practice analysis where they went through all the subjects on the CPA exam and the subtopics. and analyzed what would a person do in the first years of their work. What exactly was the input process for that? I was in on a discussion about it, but I forget the specifics.
Well, that's what they took back to the governing council, the AICPA, and they also brought back to NASBA, and they went through that, and we all sat down and discussed in like little sub-levels. We broke out into tables at the annual meeting and also at for a council meeting, their annual meeting, to discuss, you know, what changes or what we would say needed to be changed to kind of be at the level of what a staff person would do in their 1 to 2 years of coming out of college. And so that's kind of how they laid the foundation for the CPA evolution, and they came up with that information. They also reached out to the profession to ask for comments. They actually went around, Bill Reeb and the chair of the AICPA and also the chair of NASBA. They went around and spoke to different groups to tell them that process. And so that's been ongoing for over 2 years now. It was exciting to see the detail that they went into. It was exciting to see how they broke it down. And then now both boards have approved this, and now we're at the process of implementing some of those suggested changes with the CPA evolution. The question is which ones will we actually elect to do? How will it change on the CPA exam? How will education change? And so all of that will be talked about now in more detail.
Yeah, I actually participated in a survey, I guess a year ago. Colleen asked me if I would be willing to do it back when I was at, I don't know if it was the regional or annual meeting. And gosh, they sent me a survey to fill out. It took me probably the better part of a day on what me as a practitioner would expect from a first year hire, what I thought the requirements of the exam should be, and what kind of courses should be stressed. I don't know how many people did that, but I did it through NASBA. Then a few months later, AICPA did the same thing. And I was joking about it at the time because AICPA actually paid people like $100 to do it. And I said, I wish I'd been in that group instead of the first group. But anyway, there was input. I don't know how they chose the people to do it, but I participated in it.
You know, I think one thing, and I think if Kara Fitzgerald from the Tennessee Society is still on our meeting and can join with any comments she would care to add here, or that Brad would care to add. The one thing I would also say is that at least in the last 2 Tennessee Society Council meetings that Wendy and I have participated in, the CPA evolution has been a specific topic of discussion or presentation. And that council, I think, is pretty representative of the broader governing membership of the society. And so I think I don't see the motion to deal with convening, basically, if you will, the accounting educators as an exclusive to anything else we or others might do on the broader practitioners either as well. But Kara, if you have any commentary, I would certainly welcome and invite you to say anything that you would like.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yes, you're right that CPA evolution has been discussed with TSCPA's council probably at every meeting for the last year and a half. And we've actually had Bruce Bain from University of Tennessee, Knoxville present at the last 2 meetings. He serves on the AICPA board and is also an educator and has a really good grasp on, I think, the impacts of CPA evolution to the profession as a whole, including the community of educators. TSCPA is happy to assist Wendy and the board in any way, and helping to coordinate these events, whether it's for practitioners or educators. I certainly understand Pam's points, and we hear that from other educators as well at the society of just, some of the challenges that the education community faces in having to make changes, and these will certainly be very significant changes. So we are supportive of the idea of, having NASBA come and speak, and are happy to work with Wendy and staff and the board to make that happen any way that we can.
Thank you so much, Kara. Any further discussion or comment on the motion at hand? If not, Karen, will you please call the roll on the motion?
I will jump in if that's
Okay.
okay.
Thanks, Wendy.
Kevin Monroe,
Aye.
Stephen Eldridge, Jay Moon,
Aye.
Andy Bonner,
Aye.
Janet Booker Davis,
Aye.
Pam Church,
Aye.
Larry Elmore,
Aye.
Greg Gilbert,
Aye.
Todd Skelton,
Aye.
Trey Watkins,
Aye.
Dee Weatherby,
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Are there any other items under new business or discussion items here before we adjourn this morning?
I have one selfish thing I'd like to ask if I could.
Please.
Now that we're all Zooming and FaceTime, whatever the heck all this stuff is now, we get CPE credit, obviously, for state-specific ethics by attending state board meetings. And going forward, I mean, it's much more interesting to watch the board interact than it is learning material. So I probably will not be back with your group in a voting capacity after today, but it sure would be nice if we could come up with a way, again, to have our board interact with the profession or with our membership, that we figure out a way to do this electronically, whether the chairman has to ask 4 or 5 questions during a meeting, or 5 keywords like, the AICPA does when they conduct CPE, or something of that nature, so that people could get CPE credit for state-specific ethics. I would suggest doing it during committee meetings and not at the board meeting. Would be my suggestion if somebody wanted to watch and get credit that way. I don't know the mechanism for doing that. I'm sure the State Society does this every day and could probably guide us somehow on that. But again, just something to think about. I know it's not something y'all can decide today, but certainly would be nice to be able to interact with the board, or at least see the goings on with the board and get credit for that as well.
Trey,
I appreciate that very much, Trey. I'm sorry, go ahead, Greg.
This may not fully address what you're asking, Trey, but I do know for the past several TSCPA council meetings, the state board has been represented. I know Kevin made a presentation at the last meeting. Wendy may have, and Wendy, if you did, I'm sorry I forgot, but I know Wendy has been on the chapter agenda for all the chapters of the Tennessee Society of CPAs, and I think Wendy's spoken or met with most of the chapters. So I think also at the council meeting, there's opportunity, TSCPA council I'm referring to, for members to ask questions of the presenter. In this case, it would have been Chairman Monroe. So I think we're doing some of that. Maybe more of it is appropriate, but I don't.
I would just say this: there's no substitute for watching how this board conducts business and the issues they discuss. And so, what y'all do in these meetings is very important, and it affects everybody involved. And I think it would be nice to have more people interacting at the board level by watching these meetings. I think more is discussed at the committee meetings. Obviously, like today, we're voting on a consent agenda essentially for the whole judicial report. So in my mind, hearing the discussions on committee days could be very educational for someone listening and trying to understand the pitfalls and the issues that our practitioners can run into. Just a suggestion, but it sure would be nice if I could just log in when y'all's next meeting occur, or, I got to get 2 hours every year, but or every other year. But my point being, if I could just log in and watch one of the meetings, to me, that would be very interesting to watch and could accomplish my CPE requirements through some sort of system that is developed by this board. But just a suggestion. I won't be voting on it. Y'all will. So.
Well, Trey, thank you for that suggestion. And that's something that for us to chew on logistically, how we would do that and document, attendance and so forth, and what the feasibility or practicability of that is.
Yeah.
I think that's a suggestion that's worth following through on. And then the other thing, Trey, what I would say here, this may well be your last meeting with us as a board member.
Right.
But whoever succeeds you is going to have big shoes to fill because of the service that you have performed and the leadership and the continuity that you've given to our board. And so that's just greatly appreciated, very, very greatly by all of us.
Well, thank you. I'm sure they'll pick the right person. So.
Well, Lord willing and the creek don't rise. I hope so, and I hope it's soon.
All right.
All right. Any other items or discussion?
I've got just to add on. I think it's a good idea that we ought to have at least have our staff visit. I mean, if the ethics CP is good enough for us to get it, I would think that the people we represent should be able to get the same benefit that we get.
Yeah, and I think of course, nobody can attend in person because we're meeting virtually, at least now for the time being. And so I think it's a legitimate question as to, even if we revert back to meeting in person only, what are the logistical challenges and opportunities to allow folks to claim credit and participate in the committee and or board meetings with respect to the Tennessee state specific CPE credit, because you do get an education, as you just mentioned, Stephen, and Trey mentioned as well. Any further comments or discussion?
Kevin, I have one.
Yes.
Please. I want to agree with what Wendy's comments, and I think yours, Kevin, but to congratulate Janet Booker Davis. I think it's wonderful that we have a Tennessean serving on the NASBA nominating committee. And I would encourage Janet, we have some very qualified Tennesseans who are serving with NASBA right now. And I know Andy would like to move up through the ranks. So I would certainly appreciate additional consideration for Andy, Janet, as you serve on that nominating committee. So.
Well, thank you for that comment, and I will certainly do that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Janet. If there is no further items of discussion, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and hopefully we'll be able to safely meet in person in October, but we will sort that out as Deputy Commissioner Compton mentioned, based on the circumstances that are in evidence at that time. But just everybody stay safe and well. And I guess be glad that you don't have to commute home from wherever home is today. That's maybe one advantage. So thank you, everybody, and I'll declare the meeting adjourned here. Take good care.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bye.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.